Oh, this is working out really well. Oh yeah, I got the rhythm. Oh! That was a good one. I'm on fire again with another video about nutrition today. And we're gonna take a bee out of the hive that's foraging. We're gonna mark her, put her back in, and we're gonna see if we're getting our money's worth out of her work today. All this and more starting right now. What's up? I'm EAS Certified Master Beekeeper David Burns. Thanks for stopping by today, and if this is your first time here, please subscribe to the channel because I'm here to help you keep healthier bees and make fewer mistakes. That is my passion. And I want to show you today, we got some cool things planned. Today, we're going to actually take a forager, mark her, and time how long it takes her to go out, gather the nectar, and come back. Many people don't know how long it takes. Is it a minute, 2 minutes, a half an hour? It'd be good to see if we're getting our money's worth out of this forager. How about if we block it and make them all get stacked up behind? I have a better chance of getting more at one time. Let's try that. That's an idea. Point it toward the entrance. Oh, that worked perfectly. Look at all the ones I'm gathering. All right. Oh, I got one. All right. Whew. I might be able to get some white right here. White dot out. White mark, white mark, white mark back in. Landed on the top there. There she goes in. Wow. It was a 41-minute foraging flight. But what we're really concentrating on today is taking a look inside a hive with 30 frames to see if they have enough nutrition to stay healthy. Last week we did that using my inspection guide. We actually went through a hive and we evaluated how much brood was in there. Today we're going to evaluate how much resources do we have in the hive. Do we have enough pollen? Do we have enough protein such as pollen? Do we have enough bee bread? Do we have enough honey and nectar? What is the amount of resources we have in that hive? Listen, this is crucial. Pretty soon the nectar flow will stop. Your bees will begin to go into a nutrition deficit, especially a protein deficiency. That will affect your young bees, such as your nurse bees, not be able to produce a royal jelly, and a lot of the larvae begin to die in the fall because the bees can't feed them the royal jelly they need. All new larvae, 1 to 3 day old larvae, get royal jelly, not just, queens. So all of them need royal jelly, which is produced from the glands of the nurse bees that are 6 to 12 days old. So without proper nutrition, those nurse bees can't do any nursing. They need to be well fed. And I want to help you today understand that. Gear it up. Listen, bees need proper nutrition. It's been said that without proper nutrition, it's one of the leading causes of CCD. Some say bees even have a better resistance toward pesticides if they have proper nutrition. It's just like us. The healthier we are, the more we eat good food, then we're able to fight off more of the diseases out there. And bees are no different. Bees need the proteins, the carbohydrates, the vitamins, the minerals, just like we do. So don't be misled and think your bees are fine. Go in there and find out using my inspection guide. I'll leave a link below in the description here where you can get the inspection guide, or my website is honeybeesonline.com. Check that out. You can get the inspection guide there, and I'm going to use this video to show you how to use it to evaluate if your bees have enough nutrition in the hive. Now, it's summer, bees are going in and out. They should be doing okay, but that's going to be interesting to see in this hive what we think. But all this and more is going to happen, and we need to get going. Let's get right into the video right now. Okay, so we'll take a look, see what kind of resources we have today. And as you may remember, my queen actually laid some pretty good brood up in my honey super before I had a chance to get her below that in a queen excluder. But we are going to go ahead and count what we see here today. We have nectar around the edges and on both frames, so we'll say one quarter nectar on both sides. If you're receiving value from this video, I really hope you'll give me a thumbs up and please subscribe. I do these inspections like frame by frame to help you learn the basic ways to navigate an inspection. How I handle frames might help you handle frames. What I'm looking for is going to help you know what to look for using my inspection guide. So I hope you're getting value from this video. I really do appreciate you hanging in there and watching it. I'm going to be evaluating what we're looking at the end of the video and giving you an assessment of what I think about this hive. You're going to be surprised, so stick around. Now this is taken in consideration that you will leave this super as resource food for this hive. Any other supers that you want to take off probably needs to come above this super. I like to leave a super on all year for the bees to put their excess nectar, and then I can also overwinter with the one super and a winter be kind and give the bees enough resources. We're going to call this, it's almost capped over. Let's look at the other side. Same thing. So we're going to say one frame of honey / nectar. Even though I have my queen excluder on, it's a lot of bees up here in this honey super. And one of the things I did this year, I put the honey super on long before I probably normally would. I like to wait until I get a lot of frames pulled out in my deep below it. But I was making a video and I needed to show how you do it. And I just left it on there. And it kind of like serendipity invented a way to make more honey is put your supers on really early. How's that? So you see the same thing here. We have a pretty good frame of partially capped over on both sides. Same thing. So we'll call this another frame of honey / nectar. As you can see here, we have about a quarter frame of nectar and honey, and the same on the other side. So we'll say a quarter on both sides, so a half a frame honey / nectar. And let's put these frames back in their final resting position so we don't have to move them. A lot of beekeepers start shoving frames after they're done, trying to get everything lined up. Well, as you put your frames back in, line them up. That way you'll just have one to slide in when you're done. Not much on this honey super here. They have just started to pull the wax out on this new frame that I put in here. On both sides, a little bit of drawn out frame, a little bit of drawn out comb. We'll count this as 0. Again, on this one, we have, I'm going to call it a half a frame, a half a side, I guess. This half side is of nectar and honey. And there's a bee doing a little waggle dance, but doesn't look very coordinated with it. And a little bit of brood here from when the queen was there. Not a big deal, not a catastrophe. That will emerge soon. And then once it emerges, they'll just start filling it with honey. Not as much on this side. We're going to say this side here, since it does have some brood from the queen when she was here, we're going to say this has a quarter side of nectar and honey. This frame has 1/4 of a side with honey and nectar. 1/4 of a side, and we'll call 1/4 of a side here as well. They have started to put some nectar in these cells. It's not really full, but they're starting to. So we're going to call this a half side of nectar. And we'll go ahead and call this a half side as well. On this one, we're calling it a half side of nectar, combined nectar and honey. And we'll do the same on the other side as well. This frame we will call half a side of nectar and honey, 1/2 side. And the same on this one, a half side of nectar and honey. Put our hive tool right here above the queen excluder and work it all the way around until we can free it up away from that super. Then we can lift the super off and the bottom. That way the queen excluder will stay put. Alright, so what we're going to do now is continue to count our resources. We're going to lift off our queen excluder here.
This really helps us to keep our queen down. And just shake the bees off there. And as you can see, I did not have a full frame of, I didn't have all my frames drawn out when I put the honey super on. And that seemed to really lend itself for the bees putting more stored honey above them, which I'm okay with because I think they will continue to draw these frames out. I'm going to call this a quarter frame, a quarter deep frame side. About a quarter. 0 on this side here. Going to leave it outside the hive just temporarily to give us more room to move frames around. Let's get our smoker on that again. I'm not really going to register this. There's not enough here to really register on either side. This is the wall side, or they just haven't drawn that out much yet. So we'll say 0 for now. Let's leave this out to give us a little more room to play in here. Again, we're looking for resources. We're going to measure how much resources we have in the hive, and then I'll talk about whether that's enough or what's going on. This can be a little deceiving. It can look like a frame of nectar, but it's not. It's young larvae, about a 1 or 2 day old larvae that are in here. Same is true of here, capped over pupae, larvae, eggs around the outer perimeter, which is what you would expect in the brood area. 0 resources. On this frame, I've got little resources at the top corners, some honey capped over in the top corners. Man, that's not much. We're going to have to call that 0 because it's just immeasurable. You can't really measure that. Again, not much noticeable resources here to speak of, so we're going to call that 0 again. And the same is true over here. And of course, there's our queen looking to lay an egg, walking around, looking into cells like she's doing. This is just a frame that they're continuing to draw out the comb on, so not much to report in the way of resources at all there. On a frame of solid capped over brood, you'll never find any resources of any significance at all. You know, a little bit sprinkled here and there where some have emerged, but as of now, 0. Nothing, a little bit drawn out on top. No stored resources. This is not going to be anything significant to report, although they are bringing in nectar into that comb that they have drawn out. Same here, not much to report, not drawn out on really much on either side yet. Because they're further away from the brood nest area, they haven't really drawn out much yet on the outside wall area, but they will. They'll pick up the pace and get over there and get that stretched out probably within the next month. By the end of July, I would say that's going to look pretty nice. There's a small hive beetle that I have to kill. I'm going to use my finger, I think. Yep. So that was a small hive beetle right here that I just smashed with my finger. So far, I've seen 3 small hive beetle in this hive, and I've killed all 3 of them. It's worked out pretty nice. All right, let's put this back together and lift this off, go down deeper and inspect the bottom deep on its edge like this right here. That will hopefully confine my queen to that location. You may have noticed that I put my gloves on. I've had this hive open a little while and I got stung on my arm, and I've got to look at 10 more frames. I got some bees buzzing the tower, so I thought I better put some gloves on. If it gets really bad, I'll put my suit on. We're going to call this, you see the nectar in here? I'm going to call that a quarter frame of nectar, 0 on this side, with a small hive beetle. I want to let you see that small hive beetle. See that small hive beetle? Oh, a bee got it, but the bee can't do anything with it. They're kind of too hard of a shell on the beetle for the bees to do much about it. So the beetle just walks around, and if it's a mama beetle, she may want to lay eggs in there. Sometimes the bee can grab them and fly away with them. A defensive mechanism of the beetle is to scurry into a cell and hide out there. So we're going to go ahead and take her out. I smashed her with the tip of my J-hook hive tool. Interesting frame of pollen. Not a lot of pollen, but you can see the orange pollen. Nothing to speak of at all here. They're still drawing out some comb. And again, I got a little bit of nectar here, and I got some signs of some pollen in the cells. A little bit of stored pollen, but not much to speak of. So we're not going to count that. This frame has 0 resources on it and some drone brood. Now this frame has bee bread at the top. Not much, but I'm going to say, as I stare it down, 1/8 side of bee bread. Not much on this side at all. We're not going to count that. A little bit of bee bread. Not enough to count. I continue to pick up more and more bees buzzing the tower. And what I mean by that, they are buzzing my hat and veil. Just constantly flying around it, making a high-pitched noise like, hey, why don't you go away, mister? This frame does have some pollen in the middle, some bee bread on the edges. We're going to call this about a quarter side. This side is 1/4 full of pollen / bee bread. And we're going to say a quarter side over here is full as well. So a total of a half of a frame of pollen / bee bread. This side is half full of pollen and bee bread. And we're going to call this half over here. So a half a side is a whole side. That'd be 3,500 frames of bee bread and pollen. We got to smoke those bees. Too many bees are on top of their frames. That puts them in my way, and it risks me killing some by moving my frames around. So I need to get them a little deeper and on their comb. It's just too many up around the edges. Now this frame here we see is only larvae and eggs. Some little bit of capped over already, but mainly just larvae. No resources, 0 resources. And the same is true on this side as well. Alright, this frame has brood, so 0 resources. That's a queen cup, but it's empty. Oh boy, I gotta get those bees off of that lip. Don't want to kill any. There we go. We're going to call this 1/8 of a frame of capped over honey and nectar. Nothing here but brood. Alright, here we go. Let's put this back together in a hurry. Now that we're wrapping this hive back up, I want to talk to you about my assessment about what I saw and the condition that colony is in. I'm going to use my beekeeping inspection guide. I made this available on my last video. So many of you downloaded that, and I really appreciate your support in using this beekeeping guide. I made it so it could be a helpful guide for you when you're making your inspections. And so what we're going to look at today is especially important. It's over on page 9. This inspection guide walks you through what to look for. Some of you open up a hive and you're kind of get lost maybe sometimes in what to look for. You know, maybe a lot of people just open it up and say, do I have a queen? What am I looking for? I'm not sure what I'm seeing. Or you get distracted by the bees stinging you, or not being cooperative, you know, and you kind of lose track of what you're doing. This guide is just that. It's a guide to keep you focused so that you can when you finish your inspection, you can get back and you can say, okay, what did I see? And what am I going to do about what I saw or didn't see? How do I respond? Well, over on page 8 of the inspection guide, it has the information that we've been working on the last 2 times we've made videos. And that is, you know, how much brood do I have in my hive? What's the future of populations look like? But today we looked at what sort of resources are in there, such as pollen and bee bread and honey and nectar. And today I walked through with you frame by frame on what I was looking at
and what I was seeing. And one of the reasons I do this in my videos, it may kind of be mundane or boring for me looking at frame by frame. I do it for new beginners to know how to handle frames. They can see me work frames, pick them up. It kind of encourages new beginners to have more confidence to look at frame by frame. A lot of people will send me videos of their hives from 5 feet back and ask me how it's doing. And I'm like, it needs painted? Until you look at the frames, you have no idea how it's doing. Or they'll send me pictures of bees going in and out of the front, and they'll say, how do these bees look? I mean, seriously, last week somebody sent me a picture of the front of a hive, not a video, a still shot, and wanted me to assess how the hive was doing. You can't do that. You have to go frame by frame. So we're looking frame by frame in here today, and I'll tell you what, I documented the different frames that I saw. I added up how much pollen, how much bee bread, how much nectar and honey. If it wasn't for that super up there with the nectar and honey there, this hive would really be in trouble. Now, it is in trouble. Can you guess what it's in trouble about? It doesn't have much protein inside pollen. It's very little amount of pollen and bee bread. We did see some, and it's not near enough. And here's the thing, I live in Illinois, so right now my bees are mainly on clover, and that means that clover doesn't have a ton of pollen. They don't have a good resource right now for protein, and they're not going to really get one anymore. We have a lot of protein in the spring when we have dandelions, a lot of the fruit trees, and what they'll do, they'll start bringing in protein off of grass seeds. As if you let your grass kind of grow tall, they may grab some off ragweed, which isn't always the best for them. One year, get this, one year, bees were such in a protein deficit, they brought in corn pollen. It was, corn pollen is not that useful for honeybees at all. And the funny thing was about that hive, once they brought it in, they actually dropped it through the screen and got rid of it. They just didn't even like it. I mean, it's like, I could have told you that. So what do you do in a case like that? Well, what I do is I'm going to watch carefully my colony, and it's okay now because they're busy gathering nectar. Now, this is going to affect the bees in the future. I've done some talks on protein deficit at bee clubs and conferences about this. Studies have shown that if a colony experiences a protein deficit, like mine is doing, then the young larvae that's being fed royal jelly by the nurse bees, the royal jelly isn't really what it should be because the nurse bees may have a protein deficit in their bodies and they're not producing the kind of royal jelly that these young larvae need the first 3 days. So it's kind of an issue. What happens if a nurse bee isn't well fed? She's unable to feed the larvae. She'll feed them, but what'll happen is if these larvae aren't well fed, then they live shorter lives. They don't always make it back from their foraging trips as adults, and they're smaller in size. They have a lot of issues, and you don't see that. You wouldn't think that way, but it's true. I mean, look at people. When a mom's expecting, the doctor puts her on prenatal vitamins because you're developing that fetus. It's growing so rapidly, and you need the proper proteins in a baby to develop the DNA and structures of the genes and everything. So honeybees are the same way. If those young larvae in your hive, like, I want to see more brood. Well, you see a lot of brood, but if the brood isn't being fed well as larvae, you're going to have problems. Those adults will have problems. They won't live long, they won't forage well, and they're going to be smaller. So these things are critical right now. That's what you want to know, right? What do you do about that? What I'm going to do, as soon as my nectar flow ends, as soon as the clover dries up, it's going to be longer because we've gotten a lot of rain. But as soon as my clover is over, I'm going to go right out to that hive and I'm going to start feeding it my additives. Now, I'll leave a link below for my additives that I suggest people use, but it's a combination of protein, amino acids, it's a combination of like Honeybee Healthy, and it's 1-to-1 sugar water. So there are a lot of good things in that keep those bees well fed. So I would really encourage you to do the same. Check out if your bees have a lot of protein. Well, what would have been a lot? What would have made me happy?
I would have been happy if I saw 2, 3, 4 full frames in the deep box of pollen and bee bread. I'm talking about at least 2 or 3, both sides packed full of pollen and bee bread. Bee bread is more shiny pollen. It's pollen mixed with some nectar, some enzymes. It's starting to ferment a little bit. But the bees do that on purpose. It's a good food for bees. But I saw very little of that. And so bees need all of this food to raise. They're raising their young and they're feeding their young. So for me, I would give this colony on the resource, let's give it a grade. I'm going to give it a D+. Really, a D+. It's almost failing with the amount of resources that are in there. Again, if it wasn't for the super on top, there would be hardly nothing in that colony as far as honey, nectar, and pollen, or the protein that they need. So don't be fooled when you do your inspection. Look for the right things. I'm hoping this will show you what I saw, and this hive gets a D+ in resources. And I'm going to have to feed it protein. I'm going to have to feed it amino bee booster. I'm going to have to feed it some honeybee healthy as soon as the nectar flow stops. Do not feed from the entrance. That will induce robbing in the spring. Only feed from the top. And I suggest you use our top feeder for that, because that way you can change out your feed jars above a screen so the bees don't bother you. And I'll leave a link below for all this. But this is so important. I hope this inspection guide is a big help for you. This inspection guide helps you know what to take out to the colony. You know, like you need some reading glasses. You need to get your smoker fuel in your pockets. You're going to be inspecting it for quite a while. It talks about making sure you have a hydration drink. Oh, and let me talk about the hydration drink. You know, as beekeepers, we're out there, and it's usually in the hottest time of the day, right? And we're so miserable because we're sweaty, it's hot. I use a hydration drink that a friend of mine told me about, invented by a doctor. It wasn't invented by a company or a pharmaceutical company. It was invented by a doctor who was working with people in jungles that couldn't get to a hospital. And he needed to give them an IV. They were so dehydrated. And he developed a drink that would hydrate people better than an IV would. And so once a lot of us got wind of that, that's what we use now. It's called Drip Drop, and I'm not sponsored by them. I do have an affiliate link below. If you want to check that out, you can get a hold of this using my affiliate link. What I do, I take a bottle of water. I take a 16-ounce bottle of water. I drink a little bit to make room for my Drip Drop powder, and I pour 2 of those in there. I think I'm mixing that right. But I pour 2 of the little pouches in there, and I shake it up good. Man, that is so good to use. It's so easy to use, and it really makes me feel so much better when I'm out there sweating. Because I just soak my shirt under my bee suit. I just almost can't wear a bee suit because I sweat so much when it's hot. And sweat is running in my eyes. When you're dehydrated, by the way, you don't see as well when your eyes are dehydrated. So if you stay hydrated, you can see better, see the eggs better. If you stay hydrated better, your mind is, to me, more clear. If you get dehydrated, you can't focus anymore, and you're out there in the hive, and you start making clumsy mistakes because you're dehydrated. So this is an important thing about beekeeping. Stay hydrated when you're out there. I'll give you this tip as well. Are you ready? Here's a cool tip. When you're drinking this water bottle, you can drink through your veil. You don't have to take your veil off. I mean, this is worth the whole video, right? You're like, oh my gosh, I'm glad I watched it this far. This tip is awesome, because I used to unzip my veil and swing it back and try to take a drink out in the bee yard. And I don't know about you, but I either get bees on my face or the bees will fly into my hat. All you gotta do is press your veil up against your lips and push the water bottle up against your lips, and it just goes right through the veil. I mean, it's great. I got the idea from working in commercial yards with some of the commercial beekeepers, and some of their workers smoke cigarettes, you know, and they would smoke through the veil. And it was great. I thought, if you can smoke through a veil, you could drink water through a veil. And I don't know, some of you may be like, oh, I've done that for years. That's not a good tip. I don't know. When I first thought about it and started doing it, it was so cool to use. Just drink right through that veil. Well, thanks so much for watching. I hope this video has been helpful for you and knowing how to do a better inspection of your hive. And I've got this beekeeping video inspection link below in the description. So check that out. And I really appreciate your support on purchasing this guide to help you make inspections the way that you should be, to gain the right information, and then make decisions on what to do to keep your bees healthier. That way you make fewer mistakes. I think that's awesome. That's my passion. I want to help you be a better beekeeper. And I've got a lot of good videos coming up. I've been recording a lot of footage. I've been working between all the heavy rains, trying to gain a lot of footage for future videos. I'm excited about a lot of these videos that I'm making. I also have an Instagram, so if you want to check out my Instagram, I'll leave a link below. My granddaughter is really taking the lead on this, and every time there's someone new following me on Instagram, she like flips out and goes crazy. She sends me a text, we got a new follower on Instagram. You know, we're up to 15 followers on Instagram. I'm trying to post little reels on there, little short videos, and I'm trying to maybe make little comments about what I'm seeing every day or so. So check that link out below for Instagram, and you need to make Lara really happy by you know, getting on that Instagram and following us, and she'll flip out when she sees more people are following us. That gives her a lot of thrills. So I'll look forward to that, and I look forward to making these videos for you, and I'm going to make a lot more here in the next few weeks, so be sure to subscribe. And if you click on the bell, and that's going to notify you each time I make a new video. And I think I want you to do that because I put a lot of energy and time into my videos, and I need you to watch them and enjoy them. And if you click on the bell, it'll pop up on your phone that I made a new one. So do that. Okay, take care. I'll see you next time. Well, I hope this has been helpful for you. I hope you got a lot of valuable... I hope this has been helpful for you, and I hope you got a lot of valuable information about it. Ugh. Please subscribe so you'll be notified each time I make a new video. I'm going to see you in... Of course, I got to wait on a train to go through. Hope this video has been helpful for you today, and please leave me a thumbs up and subscribe. That sounds terrible. I can't talk.